are good to go.
Gorilla opening. Hi, I'm Jack.
I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are Glib Shark. Today is March 15th, or recording this on March 15th, 2016. The Ides of March, March Madness, and other March-related things are happening. We'll get to all those in just a bit, but first, as always, or at the very least as often as we can, we have the lovely, the talented, the amazing Conway Twitty. Wait, no, I meant Obo Crazy. Here to do a little something we call This Week in Geek. How are you, Obo?
I'm now frantically wondering if I can do a Conway Twitty impression, and the answer is no. The answer is always no. We're going to start with Nintendo, which is not a company that I get to talk about very often. Most of the time, we're PC gamers or Xbox gamers or PlayStation gamers, but Nintendo put out a game called Super Mario Maker many months ago, which a lot of people love. And for those of you who don't know what it is essentially make your own Mario level in Mario and share it with the world. And here's all kinds of fun ways that you can do that. Here's stuff from all of the different Mario games. And by all accounts, it was probably one of the best games last year. It's one of the more creative games for those that like to create things, who they like Forge in Halo, or they like Minecraft for building things and not necessarily fighting monsters. There's a small problem, though. Nintendo has been deleting Super Mario Maker levels, and they won't say why, and they won't say for what reasons, and they won't even really give a clear-cut answer onto when. Just that, hey, everyone's Mario Maker level will eventually be deleted. And it's gotten a bit worse. So a Mario Maker creator and father of designer in training daughter posted a distressing story on Reddit today. His daughter spent 3 hours putting together a level called Maria Cake Yoshi after receiving a notification that another player had beaten and recommended the level by awarding it a star. They went to check it out. And out of nowhere, the stage was gone, reportedly removed after being up for less than an hour. And this kind of story is sadly popping up all over the place. People finding a level that they had just posted being immediately taken down for no reason. We're not talking about people who are putting up pictures of dicks. Like, these are actual people who put together cool Mario Maker levels, and they're just being pulled. So Nintendo had put out this kind of very soft policy in January after a whole bunch of readers of Kotaku started noticing that levels were disappearing without any kind of explanation. And the people behind Kotaku went to Nintendo, and this is all they would say publicly, quote, "Notice regarding course uploads. Please be aware that after a fixed period of time, courses with low popularity will be automatically deleted from the server. Nintendo reserves the right to use uploaded courses and related data, either as is or with alterations, for either commercial or non-commercial purposes without compensation to the uploader." End quote. What does that mean? That means they could take down your level at any time for no reason. And it's a little worse than that. Say you've put 4, 5, 6 hours into making this awesome custom level, and it gets taken down, maybe because of a glitch or a weird thing, or just because Nintendo's being awful. You can't just upload it. You can't just re-upload it to share. You can't even just modify it a little bit and re-upload it. The only way to have the same creation reappear on the servers is to literally recreate it all from scratch. And anyone who has made anything in a game engine before, either through, say, Forge in Halo, or using Half-Life 2's engine, or anything, knows that's a big pain in the ass. So this is something to keep in mind. It's interesting that they also talked about that in relationship to Nintendo basically owning these levels and having the right to use them without compensation at all. The fact that they threw that in there made a lot of people suspicious. So, hey, if you're making a Mario Maker level and you're having fun with it and you think it's a really good level, you might want to remember exactly how you did it, because, it could happen again and it could happen to other people. So good luck out there. Moving on to movies. So movie prices are expensive. Not terribly expensive. There's a little bit of a range, but it's not cheap to go to the movies, especially when you start adding in if you want to get snacks, or if you'd like to pay for better seats in some of the locations that offer that. Well, now there's something else coming up that means that you might be able to pay $50 for your movies. Yay. A bunch of big Hollywood names are reportedly backing Sean Parker's Screening Room, which is a project that lets you buy movies at home the day they are released in theaters. According to Variety, Parker's new venture is being backed by Steven Spielberg, Ron Howard, Brian Gazer, Martin Scorsese, Taylor Hackford, Frank Marshall, and J.J. Abrams. The idea is that each movie will cost $50, with up to $20 going to theaters. Customers also get 2 free movie tickets with their purchase to ensure that they eventually actually go to the theater and maybe buy the crappy theater food. But, $50 so that you don't have to get a babysitter or go out or leave the house at all without having to worry about if there are going to be kids in the theater who are going to ruin the experience, without having to pay for the shitty food. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a bit steep. And now, ironically, Peter Jackson hated the plan when it was the movie studios giving movies to DirecTV 8 weeks after they were released. In a statement to Variety, Jackson had said, quote, I could try to do an Australian accent, but I'll probably suck at it.
New
Zealand.
Yes, but if you think I could do the difference between a New Zealand and Australian accent, you're mistaken. I had concerns about DirecTV in 2011 because it was a concept that I believe would have led to the cannibalization of theatrical revenues, to the ultimate detriment of the movie business. Screening Room, however, is very carefully designed to capture an audience that does not currently go to the cinema. End quote, and end horrible accent. Is this because DirecTV deals at a reasonable price and Screening Room is people who have $50 to spend on a movie? Is it because that Peter Jackson is actually involved with Screening Room and probably getting a little more money? Who knows? A lot of details haven't come out yet. I do want to know, before I go on to my final thing for the night, gentlemen, especially Roadblock, you being such a huge movie buff, would you pay $50 for a movie to be delivered right to your door day of without having to go to the movie theater?
If I had kids, yes.
Jenga?
Actually, I don't even have kids, but yeah, all the stuff that you have to do to go out and do the movies, it ends up costing probably that much anyway. So yeah, I would totally in a heartbeat do it.
Look at it this way. Like back in the day, and still sometimes now, like event pay-per-views can be anywhere from $30 to $80. Like if you were to buy an OU game, depending on which game it is, that price range is perfectly reasonable. And so $50 for a first run movie that you can just watch on your TV, on your sound system, maybe even your crappy one, it seems it's a luxury. So it's priced that way.
And the other piece of it is, like, I think if it were like a romantic comedy or a movie where it didn't make a difference being on the big screen or not, in terms of enjoying it, yeah. If it's something where I think you get more from watching in the theater, like, say, an action film, like, or a superhero film or something like that, I might be a little more reluctant to do it in that situation. But definitely for the ones that I figure, is it really worth me spending $25 to watch something where I can wait for the DVD and watch it and have the exact same effect? Those kind of movies I wouldn't even mind watching, paying them extra money for.
So let me take this to what I think is the next logical level. All the reasons you guys talked about for being a fan of this service are basically some of the same reasons that Netflix with some of its TV shows are doing well, like Jessica Jones and Daredevil. It's the same reason that on-demand music services are doing really well. Instead of, having to go to a music store and buy a CD, now you can just download it from iTunes day of, and not only the whole thing, just piecemeal. Do you think this may be the first death keel of movie theaters?
No, and here's why. What movie theaters are doing is they're smartly adapting. So personally, I love the movie theater experience. I love the popcorn. I love the smell of the theater. I love the seat. I love the auditorium, especially at my favorite movie theater. And what a lot of movie theaters are doing, and this is even coming to the theater in my neighborhood, is they're doing online specific seat sales. And I know I've talked about this before, how awesome that is. And it really is that great, because now I don't even have to wait an hour in the auditorium for my IMAX showing. All I have to do is show up with enough time to find my seat, kind of get settled, and maybe go grab some popcorn. So I think the movie theater experiences, especially with like high-end theaters like the Warren where I live and Alamo Draft House, which a lot of people are more familiar with. I think those are delivering experiences that you just can't get at home.
Well, and I would like to think that that's the shift that we'll see, that we will no longer see the, crappy insert big box theater where it's just, literally a box of people sitting in there with the crappy popcorn and awful sound, and maybe it's a split screen, to save on money. I'd like to think that movie theaters will become more of a boutique experience, that will get the dinner theaters, will get the high end pick your own seat kind of thing, but that this might be the end of the mall movie theater experience, the crappy movie experience, that your choice is going to become, do I stay home in the relative comfort of my own home and see it, or do I go to one of these event theaters in where I'm going to get something else with my experience? Well,
it's funny that you mentioned crappy movie theaters in the mall, because this last weekend I went to one of the malls in Oklahoma City, and it used to have the crappiest movie theater. I mean, it was just really, really bad. And what they did is they adapted. They renovated all their auditoriums. They were one of the first theaters in the city to do buy your seats online. And it worked out. Like, now that theater is hopping. Like, I have coworkers who go there all the time. So it's just can a theater adapt to bring those extras, or will it not? And there's a movie theater in town, in where I live, that I think might be headed towards that bad end, because it doesn't do any of those things. It is a crappy theater, and the only reason why we still go to it is because my wife refuses to go to any other theater.
Well, and one of the other reasons that, even though I'm not a huge movie buff, and if I go see 2-3 movies a year, that's a lot at the theater anyway, I will still continue to go to the theater for quite a while, because I don't have a huge TV and I don't have a surround sound system and I don't have the money for any of that. But on a semi-regular basis, I have the money to drop to go to a movie with Luke and go see something in crystal clear sound and visuals on a nice big screen and everything. And I will do that even for some crappy movies that I know that kind of experience is going to be more important than, say, the movie being good. But here's a movie, moving on, here's a movie that a lot of people might not want to go see. Indiana Jones is doing an Indiana Jones 5, and they've got a release date, July 19th, 2019. There's been a lot of speculation about this for the last couple of years. We've been hearing people say that everybody wants to do it, and now it's official. Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford will return for Indiana Jones 5. Spielberg will direct, Ford will star. Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy are going to produce. There's no mention of George Lucas, who sold Disney the rights to the character in 2012 along with Star Wars, but, who knows whether George Lucas will pop up somewhere. Alan Horn, chairman of the Walt Disney Studios, in a news release said, quote, Indiana Jones is one of the greatest heroes in cinematic history, and we can't wait to bring him back to the screen in 2019. It's rare to have such a perfect combination of director, producers, actor, and role, and we couldn't be more excited to embark on this adventure with Harrison and Steven, end quote. For the past several years, Spielberg and Ford have reiterated they've wanted to come back. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull brought them back, and it didn't work, and it worked, and it didn't work. There's been a lot of talk about what they'll actually do in this fifth movie. We'll have to see what happens. Whether in 2019 you're going to just pay $50 in your home theater or actually go to a movie theater is yet to be seen. That's all for This Week in Geek. I'm Obo Crazy. And snakes. Is it going to be full of snakes?
The world is indeed a strange place. If you happen to notice that a Super Mario Maker game has been placed as a preview entertainment event for a ultra advanced movie theater with all kinds of bells and whistles that's about to show the fifth Indiana Jones movie, you can send that fact to Lauren at obocrazy.com and she'll read it live and on the air. And while you're at it, go to glibshark.com, full of all of our great content, Buttcast, classic Jenga Jams, interviews with people like Chris Hastings and Hannah Hart, modern day Glib Shark, and of course Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks.
full of more
glibshark.
of my awful, awful accents.
Yes, and of course you get to hear like the plethora of accents by the lovely, the talented, the amazing DM of our Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks game.
But I'm done talking.
Are
I
you?
think it's time for I know. Well, for a little while. I think it's time for Jonathan to talk about what he's been doing because he's been playing some of The Division, and I want to hear about it.
I have been playing The Division, and I know last week things were kind of going off in different directions, and quite frankly, with The Division dropping on that Tuesday, I'm really glad we didn't have to do the show because we stayed up way too late playing that night, and it's not been quite as bad as some of our first weeks in Destiny, but because we have been actually doing like decent bedtimes. I know like last couple of nights we've been pretty good about stopping at a reasonable time. I know that tonight we actually stopped super early so that some of our friends could go do other things other than playing video games. And I stopped early, obviously, because I'm here with you guys. But to the game's credit, it has been tons of fun. As someone who played a ton of Destiny, I know it's not a great comparison to make. I'm making it because they're both like shoot and loot games. Like you shoot stuff, you get loots, you level up your character, you can have different kind of character builds. The Division, though, is much more RPG-ish in that like the enemies don't go down really easily unless you have like certain gear or certain perks and stuff. There are adds and minor enemies in Destiny that you can take down with a couple shots. But even some of the adds in this game, they take a lot of bullets to kill. And at first I thought that was going to be a big negative for me, but it actually hasn't been that bad, especially now that we're higher level and we have better gear and we know how to handle these higher level mobs and stuff.
Yeah, that does it kind of sounds like Destiny with more ganking.
Yeah, so speaking of ganking, so there are some, I don't know if I've talked about this before, there is a area, it's the PvP area called the Dark Zone, and to its credit, the way it works is as you progress through the game, when you first get access to the Dark Zone, you only have access to it's tiered off. Like, so if you're a level 10 character and you go to the Dark Zone, the highest level player character that you will meet is level 14. And it goes in steps like that, all the way until you get to the 25 to 29. That's the last step before you hit the level 30 Dark Zone, which is the current max. And so once you get in there, you're going to start running into the guys who have been grinding for tons of gear. They're going to be specially kitted out. The biggest difference between this Dark Zone and the Dark Zone in the beta is that the AI mobs are a lot harder. And not only do you have access to higher level areas, but the areas that you had access to in the beta, the mobs are just insanely, well, not insanely, but significantly more difficult. So it's one thing that has kind of tempered the whole people going rogue thing is that, one, you really only going rogue. A lot of people want it to be more rewarding. I think it's fine the way it is, especially if you're going to be ganking people for their gear. That should be the reward in and of itself. You're taking a risk that you're going to get something really good versus getting killed and then losing a bunch of stuff. It's a risk reward thing, and right now I think it's fine. But there are voices in the community that want going rogue to be more profitable, and I'm like, no, it's fine the way it is. But because the AI mobs are so much harder, it's not a good idea to start shooting at some player characters while AIs are shooting at you, and either one of them just on its own could murder you.
Now, what incentive is there for your own party to not do that to you? There's been lots of games out there that have been, I've just forgotten the name of one of them, but it's like, hey, the four of you are going to go on a heist, and at the very last minute, you could betray everybody and just get all the money for yourself. What's to prevent that from happening?
Well, first of all, if you are in a team with your friends, like you're in an actual 4-person or up to 2 to 4 people team, you can't hurt each other. You can't overtly hurt each other. You can kind of get in each other's way, and that happens a lot. but you can't actually inflict damage with bullets. Only members of other teams can do that. So presumably you could leave your team and then murder everyone unexpectedly. But then your team is probably not going to want to play with you again.
Probably
so that's
not, but
that's the disadvantage. So if you're doing matchmaking, like you're going on LFG sites and hooking up with people there, that's probably more of a concern. But right now, I'm just playing with my friends, and I have full confidence that's not going to happen. Now, there are ways to get more of your friends into the dark zone, so you could potentially have 2 teams of your friends in the same instance. We haven't done that yet, but we did that a bunch in the beta. And in those cases, you can hurt each other. But again, like, these are your friends, at least in my case. So I'm not too worried about them like overtly betraying me, because they know in real life that's going to piss me off. And my friends don't want to do that to me. That's why they're my friends. So I don't think there's much of that. I mean, you still have to worry about some of the other social aspects. There are assholes out there, and they will try and come and take your stuff. And we have run into that. Fortunately, if you have a well-coordinated team, you stand a pretty good chance of defending your stuff, especially in a bigger group.
So how does the game differentiate between you shooting to defend yourself against an asshole coming to take your stuff and you just going rogue?
It doesn't. So when you do damage to another player, depending on how much damage you do, it warns you, hey, this is a non-hostile agent. Doing further damage will make you go rogue. If you continue to do damage, then you go rogue. So when you get to a standoff, you run into that situation where you might try to just kind of leave them alone, maybe move off somewhere else. But if you need whatever, like if you needed an extraction or something, so you have to be in this area, there can be some tension, and eventually someone pulls the trigger. What you want to avoid is getting baited into going rogue. There are people who will run in front of your fire and try to get you to go rogue because they've taken a bunch of damage from you, and then all of a sudden you and your party go rogue, and then they turn around and try and shoot you. And there are other forms of rogue baiting, like if one of the launchers in the game launches a sticky bomb. Well, there's 2 other launchers that do benign things. So what some people try to do to rogue bait is they'll, like when everyone's kind of gathered, they'll do one of the benign launchers so it doesn't actually do any damage, but they've launched something into the middle of your party. So you turn, you start fighting, and then you've all of a sudden gone rogue because you thought they were going to try to kill you. People are jerks, and you just have to be careful. Like a week of running stuff in the Dark Zone, I actually just got to Dark Zone level 30 this week, or actually tonight. So it's one of those things where you just have to know the situation. If you have someone who has seen a lot of action in the Dark Zone, take cues from them. We have a couple of different people in my group who kind of make the call. Like if a group is being shady, then we are on lookout. Sometimes people will accidentally go rogue. They will put an explosive a little too close to someone they didn't intend to. We've let people who have clearly accidentally gone rogue, we've let them go. We've been like, we're not going to chase you. We're not going to kill you. We recognize that it was an accident. There was no harm done. We're letting you go. So, and then some people we've hunted down in multiple times and killed because they're jerks.
But my understanding is you have to go to the Dark Zone for all of the best loot.
You don't have to. There are other means by which you can get really, really good loot, but it is by far the most effective way to get good loot. Because like if you get decent extractions from the Dark Zone, you'll either use that gear because it's really, really good, or you'll sell it because it's valuable.
Okay, next question for those of us who have not played the Division but have heard a lot of news about it. Have you had to participate in queuing up for a terminal?
Okay, so that was a specific mission at the very beginning of the game where in order to complete it, you had to hit a terminal. There wasn't physically enough space around the terminal for everyone to hit the button, and you couldn't pass through player models. So that caused a lot of the queuing that you saw in those pictures. That was very famous. They've done a few things to take care of that. One, I don't even think you have to hit that button anymore. I think it's as long as you just go in and talk to the guy, not necessarily the laptop, you'll do it. Basically, they've resolved the issue of not everyone being able to interact with the thing. Also, there's a lot less people doing that mission now. Launch day, everyone was in the same boat. So everyone was trying to do that at around the same time. I personally didn't run into that, but it's not a thing anymore. It was a thing launch day and maybe the day after, but now you really don't have to do that at all.
Okay, and a related question, since you did mention the whole there's not you can't pass through other players. Have you encountered somebody intentionally blocking a door?
I don't know if they were intentionally doing it or doing it on purpose, but apparently if you try and run through a player, you will eventually be allowed to pass. When that happened, I was in the menu anyway, and so I just fast traveled out.
Okay. So that basically ends all of my knowledge about the Division. Is just it's awesome, but it's got these horrible things going on.
No,
which
they're
sounded
not.
A little contradictory.
The most horrible things you'll run into are sometimes there's lag. I know on the Xbox One, sometimes my game there's so much stuff going on that it'll kind of freeze up a little bit, and it'll act like it's going to crash. And there's some weird issues, like all of a sudden your map, you can't navigate all over the map. And you can't fast travel to places. So you have to log out of the game, log back in, and it'll fix it. There are weird issues like that, but there's nothing like terrible.
Okay. And so overall, you said you're already at level 30. What's the max level?
So there are two different progressions. There is your character level in the story missions and stuff, and the side missions in the greater map. The level cap for that is 30. And that's the gating for getting into the dark zone. So like I said, if you're level 10 through 14, you have a dark zone tier just for you. And then it continues all the way up to 30. I think there's 4 or 5 total. In the dark zone, that's a different progression system. Basically, what it gates is the kinds of gear you can pick up. Like there are chests that are just for level 10, or they're for level 10 and above. So until you get to level 10, you can't get to these chests. And that's Dark Zone level 10. Then there at 30, there's another gate where you can start buying gear from the Dark Zone vendors. And then there are other chests that you can open up in the Dark Zone. And then there is Dark Zone level 50, which gets you, there's more gear that you can get. And that's where the super high end stuff is. So at 30, I'm doing pretty good. I have 2 high-end weapons that I use, and all my other gear is the purple stuff. And it's kind of nice because it uses the same progression of gear rarity that a lot of other games do. Like I presume World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Dying Light, Destiny, all those games, Elder Scrolls Online, all of those games use the same white, green, blue, purple, yellow progression. And so I have 2 pieces of yellow gear, and the rest of my stuff is purple.
And so what's the end game here? Because in Destiny or in World of Warcraft or any of those, there's either a multiplayer aspect or there is an end of world kind of raid that you're supposed to go on. What's the end game for the Division?
So like Destiny, it's sort of these end game activities. You have missions that you can kind of run back for better loot, but they're much, much harder. Eventually, there will be these types of activities called incursions, which it's not clear whether these are the raids of the Division or just like strikes. There are rumors of a 8-player activity. Normally your maximum fire team is 4, but there has been whispers of an 8-player raid on one of the islands around New York. Or Rikers Island specifically. So I don't know if that's unconfirmed, but what they have confirmed are high-level incursions that are separate missions that you can get more stuff in. So like a lot of these games, you're just kind of gearing up for these end-level activities. And one thing that I don't like about the Division is that if you have someone who has been playing the game for a week, and let's say, Lauren, you decide, hey, I want to play the Division. So you do the tutorial, you come out as a brand new level 4 person. if you play with me, we're gonna face enemies that are the average of our level.
It's the Borderlands way of doing things.
Exactly. So they won't be much of a problem for me, but they'll be punishing for you. That's one thing I don't like. That's one of the things that I really enjoyed about Destiny was that if I had a new player, I could go with them on all their missions, and I'm just there to help. My damage is capped depending on the level of the enemy. So even though they can't really damage me all that much, I can't just like steamroll. I mean, you sort of do, but it's not so overpowering that your partner feels totally left out. So it's very different than that. Like we tried playing with a friend of ours who had been playing essentially all day on launch day, and when I got home and came out as a brand new level 4, I couldn't play with him because he was several levels higher than I was, and I couldn't kill anything.
Yeah.
So that sucks. But one of the things that's nice about everyone getting to 30 is that now you can do everything with each other. You can go to the dark zone together. You can do missions together. You can just run around, and if like every neighborhood in New York, aside from the dark zone, has a series.
Borough. I'm sorry. A borough.
No. Like neighborhood. Like you're in the borough of Manhattan entirely. And
okay.
The borough
right.
of Brooklyn is where you start out.
I'm sorry. The New Yorker in me came out. I'm like, no, I'm sorry.
Well, the New Yorker was wrong.
No, the New Yorker.
I'm literally
was right.
talking about neighborhoods. Like
you were talking about an actual like block, and
so like Hell's Kitchen or
yes,
Gramercy
exactly.
Park. Got it. Okay.
Precisely. Like all of those places have side missions and collectibles and stuff like that. So that's another thing you can do with your friends is go around and knock some of those out. It's a little weird how it does it because every player has their own instance of what they've done. But if I go into, let's say, our good friend Izzy's instance, what she's done may be different. So if she's done a side mission, it won't necessarily show up for me if I join her instance. But if I hop back to mine, then all of my stuff is accurate. So that's a little annoying. It makes doing some of these sites things a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, that definitely is once again kind of the Borderlands model
right.
of, whoever's in charge of the party, it's their game world. Mm-hmm. And if you've already done something, you can't see what you're doing, basically. Just have to follow them around. So there's impetus there if you are playing co-op to continue to play co-op with the same people for that exact reason.
Right. And
for better or for worse.
Right. And it's fine. It's ended up to where, like, if I'm playing but none of my friends are online, then I can go and do side stuff. Like, I can go and clear a neighborhood of all its activities, find its collectibles and all that. And since it's a 1-to-1 size to the actual New York, it's pretty amazing because it's the same sort of playable area that you might have in a Fallout, but it's all in South Manhattan. So if you run from one area of the map to the other, you are doing that run. And thank God there's fast travel because I don't want to have to go 10 minutes to get from one area to another. It's that, but it's still really cool. And it's still neat to see people who take pictures of actual New York and compare them to pictures in this game and how close they are.
That'd be interesting to see. Here's my apartment complex, that kind of thing.
Someone did that. Someone's office was near one of the training missions in Brooklyn. And he's like, this is how my office looks in the game. And he took those pictures. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. It was really, really cool.
I would say capturing that level of detail is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some places like you can't enter every building and you can't climb everything. So there are some conceits, like if you go down to the subway, you're not going to be able to visit like every subway station. But there is a lot of stuff you can visit. Like the Times Square subway station is right there. I have been there a few times, and it's neat to kind of see like, hey, I bought empanadas from here. Speaking of Izzy, she was in New York recently, so she was like, we were running down one street, and she was like, hey, I think I bought sunglasses over there. That stuff is really cool.
Yeah. Makes me wish that more games were set in like other places aside from, New York or LA or London or Tokyo. I would love a game set entirely in Northeast Philadelphia. I may be the only person who buys it, but I would love a game like something like that. I mean, it's cool that they had the ability to capture that level of detail and deliver. I was actually just listening to a podcast. I mean, with Rachel, Jay and Miles explain the X-Men, which is basically two nerds explaining the entire run of the Uncanny X-Men from like 1963 onwards. And they actually had Chris Claremont on recently, and he's the guy who's basically the godfather of the X-Men. He wrote the title for the majority of its run. And he was saying how he would drop in little bits of like flavor or color, like to connect people, to ground the work, which is fantastic in its nature, with something familiar to the audience, whether it be a person or whether it be a landmark. And he found that made his work last. And this is kind of the same thing, where it's like if you know New York, you're like, hey, it's kind of cool, and it connects you to the game in a way you otherwise wouldn't happen if it was like Metropolis or Gotham City.
Right. And I think one of the reasons why they did New York and Manhattan specifically is because even if you don't live there, you've probably been there before. So that level of familiarity kind of reaches out.
Or at the very least, you've seen it on TV.
Yeah, not everyone has been to downtown Oklahoma City. And while I think that would make for another really, really good game, and you could probably get around the same kind of area, obviously you would have to go out a little further because Oklahoma City downtown is not nearly as big as Manhattan. Actually, it might be land area, but it's definitely not as developed. But it's not familiar. And you get that familiarity with New York City, which is cool.
But overall, it sounds like you're pretty pleased with the game so far.
Yeah, I have been very, very pleased. I think not every game is going to be perfect, but this one is really, really good. And it's been all I ask from a game like this is it fun to play with my friends? And after some hiccups initially, it has now been that kind of game where it's the kind of thing you load up, you see who's on, you hook up with them, and then you go do something. You go say, hey, we're going to take a walk in the dark zone. That's another thing. One thing I was worried about that you would have to do 4-person dark zone excursions. You don't have to. I've been in plenty of excursions where it's just me and one other person, and we've done just fine. In fact, in those cases, the worst thing to do is run up against a mob that you can't handle. It's not really the other players that are the issue, it's the AI. And that's what I want from the dark zone. I want challenging missions like that versus having to worry about a group of players that might come over and be dicks.
Well, it'll be interesting to see in a couple of weeks whether you're still deep into this or if this has made you want to go back to Destiny, or if you're splitting your time between the two, or if you just get eventually sick of the loot grind and decide to move on to something like Stardew Valley.
I'm not going to become a farmer anytime soon. But I will say that I haven't played much Destiny. Quite frankly, that grind got tiresome. And again, it's not a game that my friends play anymore. I mean, if let's say this Friday night, my friends were like, hey, let's do a Destiny raid, I'd be all for it. I'm not against playing Destiny. But as far as a daily gaming fix, the Division has it right now.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely check in a couple weeks and see how it's going. See if it's lasted, if it's stuck with you.
Let's talk about what has happened this week? I know a lot. I
finished X-Files.
So how did the series turn out for you?
So wait, let me ask: have you guys watched all 6 episodes of X-Files?
Absolutely not.
Neither have I, but I don't mind if you spoil it.
Well, so I won't spoil it. However, I will say my opinions might spoil a few things, but I won't get into specifics. So of the 6 episodes, the first and the last are basically bookends. They're big set pieces. And the 4 in the middle are slightly more much more standalone. Of those, the 3rd episode, which is I thought was excellent. I thought it had the humor of the series as well as the mystery. It played on a lot of different ideas. It was written by some of the writers who've written some of the best episodes of the original series. And all the rest of the episodes really just were either very blah, or in the case of the final episode felt like someone had written fan fiction to finish off the original series and has not posted the last chapter yet. So yes, I guess I am going to spoil something. It's a fucking cliffhanger.
Oh.
A 6-episode, basically mini-series with no talk about a return in any way, shape, or form ends on a cliffhanger. And I'll give him credit. If you've been watching X-Files from day one and have been at least semi-paying attention to the big, long conspiracy arc that have been included in all of the special event shows and in the movies and everything, there is a little bit of grim satisfaction in seeing a lot of that finally pay off. You finally get to see the things everybody's been warning you about for 10 plus seasons. But there's no payoff. There's absolutely zero payoff. And the episode before it, which was, I think, supposed to also be very funny and irreverent and introduce 2 characters who then become vital in that last episode, just annoyed the hell out of me. It had some racial stereotypes about Muslims that made me, frankly, super uncomfortable. The humor in Always fell flat. And so it was kind of a poor lead up into what was supposed to be like this earth-shattering event that just, as I said, it felt like fan fiction. I am upset. I'm disappointed, actually, more than I'm upset. We got to the end. Luke and I had been watching it together. We got to the end of the last episode, which we'd watched the first 3 and we're like, okay, yeah, and the third one was really good. And then we'd watched 2, and then it was like, well, there's only 1 left. We might as well. It wasn't like Jessica Jones where we got to some of the last episodes. It was like, no, we're not stopping. I don't care what time it is. Or, other series like this that we've been blitzing through. We got to that last episode. It was like, well, I guess we'll finish. And it was not what I was hoping for or expecting or anything. Very thumbs down. Would not repeat.
Wow. And that's the worst thing you can hear as a kid. Like, not if it was your parents. Like, it's not that I'm upset or angry. I'm just disappointed.
Chris Carter, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah. Gosh. There's this whole nostalgia wave that everyone's riding. Like, everything 20 years old is cool again because it's retro, right? So we're coming up at 96 or whatever. So that would be, that's a prime time for X-Files, actually. That's right in the lead up to the movie, I think.
And there's a lot of really nice nods to that kind of time gap. You do get some good jokes at the expense of everybody having cell phones now. Mulder actually has a rant in one of the episodes about how half the X-Files don't matter anymore because what used to be just word of mouth and story and eyewitness accounts and all these things that added to the mystery, now everyone's got a cell phone and can take pictures and video, and you get a lot of those kind of nods to, yep, it's been a couple decades, it's been a while, but yeah, and I'm not even gonna say it treads on nostalgia too much, because I think they did an okay job of not being the look at Mulder and Scully, so many years after they were on TV, ha ha ha. They didn't really go down that too far. It just, in the end, it has to be, the standalone episodes have to be taken as Monster of the Week episodes, and they have to be enjoyable by themselves, and they weren't. And the big set piece bookends need to be epic, and if they're gonna try to tie the universe together, then it very well better, and it better not be a Mary Sue fanfic when you do it.
I did not think that this week I would hear the words Mary Sue fanfic.
Yeah, tell me. Well, I could go on to talk about, I finished Dragon Age, which also had a slightly disappointing ending. I'm super far behind on all of my media. I finished a TV show that came out weeks ago, and I finished a video game that came out a year or 2 ago. So I'm super far behind.
And it was some of these nostalgia kicks. Like, I actually saw a couple episodes of Fuller House, and I wasn't expecting. And to be honest, like, Full House is like the Kraft macaroni and cheese of television, in that it's not the best meal. It's not even the best brand of macaroni and cheese or the best type of macaroni and cheese. You could have lobster mac or other kinds of mac and cheese that are more inventive or more creative or scratch a different itch. But aside from the window dressing of modern technology and a couple of nods at the real life, it's like it's comfort food in television form. And I think if you take it like that and you're looking for your old familiar friends and to be a kid again, I mean, it's fine. It's serviceable. That's exactly what it does. If you're looking for, bold statements about man's inhumanity against man, then, you shouldn't look at Full House either. Although Daredevil comes out Daredevil this week, and then I just finished House of Cards too. So we have to do spoiler cast for both of those at some point.
I'm down with doing a House of Cards spoiler cast next week.
Cool.
You gentlemen can do that. Luke is crawling up the walls trying to figure out how he's going to watch all of Daredevil season 2 and is admittedly, understandably upset with the fact that I have seen all of one episode of Daredevil season 1 and I have to work a ton this weekend. So he's probably going to have to watch season 2 without me. And I think that's only going to upset him until he actually has to sit down and watch it, and then he's not going to care. So if anyone would like to get together with Luke and watch all of Daredevil season 2 when it drops, shoot him a message. I'm sure he would be happy to hear from you because I sadly have to work a lot this weekend.
Bummer.
Oh, God, that's right. I keep forgetting that it's this weekend.
It is Friday, Luke? Friday. It drops Friday, which is the smart thing to do. Drop it on a Friday and give everybody the entire weekend to blitz through another 13 episodes, which,
Right around Easter, too, interestingly enough, for a Catholic protagonist.
There you go. I'm sure they actually moved up Daredevil. I want to say the original release date was like another month or 2 away, and then they moved it up because they finished it earlier than they expected, and because Netflix doesn't have to wait for arbitrary release dates or anything, they can just say, nope, it's done, here you go. So I wonder if this was intentional or if this was just accidental perfect marketing or what. We'll only know.
I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth.
A gift Punisher in the mouth?
Or sure. Punisher rides a horse, right? His name's Microchip or something?
I don't know. I don't know.
Was that a comic book joke that only you can get?
Yeah, well, so Microchip is actually like the nerdy sidekick for a while, the Punisher had like a sidekick. And there's this dude named Microchip, and he was this fat guy in a van who was basically like a computer expert who was able to, look up information about like the people that the Punisher was going to go, kill. He actually made an appearance in the Spider-Man cartoon from 20 years ago.
I think, didn't Wayne Knight play Microchip in the Punisher Warzone movie?
Was that the one with Ray Stevenson or the one with Thomas Jane?
Ray Stevenson.
That one with Thomas Jane and Ron Perlman is still my favorite Punisher thing ever of all time.
And here's the thing, like they've had 3 Punisher movies and they've all been terrible. Interestingly, they've had 3 Fantastic Four movies and none of them have lived up to the snuff.
No, but that's short. That's short with Punisher doing his laundry and then seeing the kid get beat up. Like that thing is amazing.
It's like
am I the only one who knows about that?
No, that's Laundry Day.
Okay.
Is that a fan fiction thing kind of thing?
Sort of. The people that made it starred Thomas Jane, first of all, and it only had one article of clothing with a Predator skull in it. But it was very cleverly a sequel to the Thomas Jane Punisher because it was Thomas Jane.
Yeah. It was also Ron Perlman being the best that Ron Perlman is, which is gravelly and drunken and yet kind of a wizened, grizzled soothsayer magician person, and alcohol as a means to an end. If for those of you at home who have not seen, I just looked it up. It's The Punisher Dirty Laundry. It is a 10-minute short. It is I
would highly recommend it.
The official description is It's a 2012 fan film based on the Marvel Comics anti-hero The Punisher. It's The Punisher. It's Thomas Jane playing The Punisher, and it's awesome. And definitely, yeah, as Roblox said, totally. Whatever you may think about the movies, this may be the short worth watching before The Punisher shows up on Daredevil. I may have to go watch this again now.
On that note, my dog is looking at me. Apparently, he needs to be walked again.
Damn you, dog. Damn you, dog. Ending our show.
Our sound producer is Jonathan Damn You Dog Cerna.
You know what? There are dogs that you can shoot in this game. I haven't shot any. I refuse to shoot dogs.
That's mighty nice of you. You know who else is mighty nice? Our announcer, Bob Ball, voice actor. Our music is done by our friend Linnea Boyev. And on behalf of Jonathan Cerna, Lauren Urban, and the entire Glib Shark staff, this is Jack Edithel saying good night, good health, and as Nell Carter would say, give me a break.